Your anatomy is a blueprint. You are an architect. Beneath your skin lie the plans for your fastest, strongest, most powerful self. If you can learn the structure of your skeleton, the makeup of your muscle, and the mechanics of movement, you can create your best possible body.
I'm Mike Robertson. This is Built by Science. Chances are, the very first time you stepped in a gym, you went through an arm workout. And I get it. Guys, gals alike, everybody wants a great looking set of arms because they're one of the most showy and visible muscles that you have on your body. But with that being said, I want you to think about this. Are you really getting the most out of your arm training? As we go through this video, I'm going to show you guys why little things like muscular attachment points and specific joint positions can make a profound difference in how your arms are built. With that being said, we're going to cover 4 main areas in this video. First, we're going to cover the muscular anatomy. Second, we're going to cover the bones and joints involved in creating those movements. Third, I'm going to show you the motions that those muscles create. And last but not least, we're going to show you a few key exercises so you can get the most bang for your buck when you're in the gym. With us here today, we've got WBFF Fitness Pro Jen Jewell. She's got an amazing physique, a rockin' set of arms, and she's going to help both you and I better understand the anatomy of the arms. To start, let's give you guys an overview of the muscles of the front of your arm. Now, when we're talking about the front of your arm, we're looking at 3 specific muscles: your biceps brachii, your brachialis, and your brachioradialis. You have what's called your biceps, and bicep just means 2 heads. So you have 2 heads to your bicep muscles. The first is what's called your short head. It actually attaches to the front of your scapula and comes straight down and attaches onto your radius. Second, you have what's called your long head, and it takes a little bit longer route, but ends up at the same point on your radius. And this is important to note because this radius bone, when we change your arm position a little bit, is going to make a big difference as far as what muscle you're recruiting. So you got your biceps brachii. Second, you have what's called your brachialis, and that runs from the midpoint of your arm, comes down, it actually attaches to your other forearm bone, which is called your ulna. Last but not least, you have your brachioradialis. So if you can imagine, on the outside lower portion of your arm, it comes down and attaches to a point called your styloid process, or just the end of that radial bone. So these are the 4 main areas we're going to focus on the front side of your arm. Now that we've covered the front of your arm, let's look at the back side of your arm. Most people are really focused on, the biceps because they look good. It's easy to, cramp them up and pump them up in the mirror. But what's also important is your tricep could be arguably up to 75% of your upper arm. It starts with your lateral head. And your triceps, again, 3 heads. So the first one starts on your upper arm. It comes down and it attaches on what's called your olecranon process, or your elbow. If we turn the arm just a little bit, underneath her long head here is what's called your medial head. And again, that starts on your humerus, or your upper arm bone, comes down and it attaches on that olecranon. The third tricep head is what's called your long head. And you'll want to remember this one because it's just a little bit different from the others. In this case, your long head runs from your scapula or your shoulder blade, comes down and attaches on your olecranon. And that last point's really important. Because it attaches on the scapula, we can move your arm and your shoulder around a little bit to isolate it in your arm training. Now that we've covered the muscular anatomy of your arm, let's look at the actual bones and joints involved in creating those movements. When we're looking at the front of your arm, key players that we're looking at here are your shoulder joint, or your glenohumeral joint, your elbow joint, and last but not least, what's called your radioulnar joint. And this one's important because by changing our forearm position even a little bit, it's going to make a difference in how those muscles are recruited and trained. So we're going to show you more about this when we talk about the actual muscle movements, but I want you to become familiar with this concept of pronation and supination. So that's the front of the arm. Now let's take a look at the back of the arm. So when we're talking about your triceps, a couple joints and bones that are really important. First, your scapula or your shoulder blade and your glenohumeral or shoulder joint. These two are really important, especially if you're interested in isolating the long head of your triceps. So if Jen goes up overhead and she goes ahead and does an exercise just like she would in like an overhead tricep extension, she's really stretching out the long head of that tricep. So if you want to isolate that muscle, you got to get your arm up overhead. That's one. So the most obvious example when we're talking about triceps is very simply elbow extension. So all she's going to do in this case is just straighten her elbow joint out, flexing and holding that in position. And this is going to be relevant whether it's a press down variation, a kickback, or even something more compound like a closed grip bench press. Now that we've covered the muscles, the bones, and the joints involved in your arm training, let's start to put it all together so you can see how this works when you're in the gym. Keep in mind, when we're talking about the front of your arm, we're always going to be talking about elbow flexion, or simply trying to bend your arm up like this. Now, let's look at the actual muscles that we're going to be training. Your biceps brachii, remember, they come down and they attach right here on your radius. They're important because not only do they create flexion at your elbow, but they also create what's called supination. And a lot of people get confused, but to think about supination, just think about holding a cup of soup versus pronated, well, that wouldn't go over too well. So when you're in this position, when you're supinating, you're really going to hit that biceps brachii hard. And that's also why you'll see a lot of people supinating when they're in the gym. They're trying to really hit their biceps hard. So after the biceps, you've got your brachialis. And don't forget, your brachialis runs from the middle of your humerus, comes down and attaches on your ulna, or the inner of your two forearm bones. Now this is important because as soon as Jen goes into a neutral grip, as you would in like a hammer curl or something of that nature, you've got a really direct line of pull here, and it's going to maximize development of that brachialis muscle. Last but not least, if you go into a fully pronated grip, one thing that's important, as soon as you go into a pronated grip, you lose the mechanical advantage through your biceps. So just by virtue of being in this position, you're not going to get as much biceps recruitment. And that's important because in this position, your brachioradialis has a really strong line of pull. So anytime you're in a pronated grip doing something like a reverse curl or something of that nature, you're really going to isolate and focus on that brachioradialis. Now that we've taken a look at the movements on the front side of the arm, let's have Jen spin around and we'll take a look at what movements we have available to us on the back side. Now, the obvious movement that we have here is simply elbow extension. So I'm just going to have Jen extend her elbow here, and then when she goes from a flexed to an extended elbow position, she's kind of working all three of her heads equally. She's got the lateral head, she's got that deep medial head, and then she's got her long head. So elbow extension is the obvious example here. But as soon as we go up overhead, now we start to stretch the long head of that tricep. So putting her into some sort of overhead position and then working on elbow extension is going to preferentially recruit the long head of that tricep. So if you guys know and understand these different elbow positions and why moving your shoulder around is important, it's just going to help you guys maximize your arm growth and get more out of your arm training. Up to this point, we've covered the muscles of your arm, the bones and the joints involved, as well as the movements that we're trying to create. Now, to tie it all together, we're going to make the rubber hit the road and we're going to show you guys a few of our key exercises. But before we get into that, I just want you guys to understand, Jen is awesome. She's going to make this look super easy. But with that being said, just because it's easy here doesn't mean we want you guys to go easy in the gym. You got to push it, you got to crank it up a little bit if you want to get the most out of your arm training. So with that being said, the first exercise we've selected is an easy bar curl. The reason I like an easy bar over a barbell, a lot of times people have asymmetries between their shoulders, between their elbows. So a barbell curl just kind of tethers their shoulders together and it gives them issues. In this case, easy bar curl is a little bit easier to use and it's a little bit more shoulder and elbow friendly. To get the most out of your easy bar curl, make sure you keep your abs tight and your glutes tight. Not only is that going to help you move more weight, but it's going to protect your lower back as well. You can see Jen gets a nice squeeze at the top and she gets full extension of her elbow at the bottom, so she stretches her biceps. Another thing I want you to note, she's in that supinated grip, so she's really working those biceps hard. Whenever you're supinated, that's when you're going to maximize biceps development. Second exercise we're going to cover is a reverse grip, easy bar preacher curl. So if I have Jen set up just with her hands up to start, a lot of times you remember your biceps come down and they attach on that radius, so they're really important if your hands are supinated. So if we're going to switch that up and I'm going to have her turn her palms over, you can imagine that attachment point for her biceps are closed off. So her biceps are at a really inefficient line of pull. So at this point, we're really going to work on and target your brachioradialis. And remember, when your palm is down, this is a pronated grip or a reverse grip. So once she's in this position, it's really simple. Keep the elbows pinned to the pad here, and then simply flex the elbow. You can see she's keeping a nice neutral alignment through her wrist, getting a nice peak contraction at the top, and then going all the way down, getting a full range of motion. You don't want to hyperextend the elbow, so there's a happy medium there, but you want to make sure full squeeze at the top, and then allow a full range of motion at the end. Last but not least, this is a pretty specialized exercise. Even if you're going heavy, you're not going to use as much weight as you would in a more compound lift like an easy bar or barbell curl. So you're going to want to make sure, put this in at the end, it's kind of the icing on the cake. One other thing to note, whenever you go into this pronated grip, you're not only getting some upper arm development, but you're also getting forearm development as well. So you're really killing two birds with one stone. Rather than doing a bunch of grip specialization exercises, you can use this and it's going to give you a lot more bang for your training buck. Our final exercise for the front of the arms is a seated hammer curl. So Jen's just sitting on your standard bench. She's going to allow the elbows and arms to hang loosely by her sides. I often cue my clients just to keep the abs tight. It just helps protect the back and it kind of ties everything back together. So you can't cheat and you're focused on using the appropriate muscle. So from this position, she's just going to keep her hand in a neutral grip position, so it's just facing each other. And when you do this, you're really going to hit that brachialis, which remember runs from the inside of your arm, comes down and attaches to your ulna. Now, if you want to tweak it just a little bit, go ahead and add a little bit of a twist at the top. When you go from this neutral to supinated position, now you're really starting to hit the biceps versus just the brachialis. So depending on what muscle you want to target, you can either go with a hammer grip or go ahead, supinate at the top and get a little bit extra biceps. Now that we've covered the front of the arm, we're going to switch our attention and focus on the triceps or the back of the arm. Now, in my opinion, there's no better exercise than a closed grip bench press. It's a big compound pressing exercise, and when you often think of a bench press as a chest exercise, you're still getting a ton of elbow extension, which is really going to help you build big triceps. So from this supine position, laying on her back, Jen's going to take the bar out and she's going to use about a neutral or shoulder width grip. If you get too narrow with this, it puts a lot of strain and torque on your wrist in the bottom position. So if she sets up with a shoulder width grip, it's going to be very wrist friendly. So once she's in this position, I always cue my clients turn the knuckles up just a little bit so that she gets a nice neutral wrist alignment. And then from this position, think about pulling the bar down to your chest. You can see she keeps the elbows tight and close to the body, and then always finishing with the knuckles up. Arguably the best thing about a closed grip bench press is the fact that you can really overload the muscles. A lot of times when people think of arm exercises, they think of isolated single joint movements. The fact that you're using your shoulders, your elbows, all these big joints is going to allow you to push some serious weight and develop some seriously large muscles.
A
The last exercise we're gonna cover for your triceps is an overhead tricep extension. So we've just got a dumbbell here. Jen's gonna go ahead and pick that up, and she's gonna kind of create like a diamond shape with her hands to fit the dumbbell into her hands safely and effectively. From this position, you can see her elbows are up. Whenever she goes into this overhead position, she's putting the long head of that tricep on stretch. So she's gonna keep this position the entire time. Go ahead and bend the elbow, and then extend the elbow at the top. So again, just by virtue of her going overhead, she's gonna isolate and really focus her time and attention on the long head, which is a little bit more challenging to flesh out when you're just doing a more standard press down or close grip bench variation. Now in this video, we've highlighted just a few key exercises that we think best represent how you should be training your arms. But if you want to get the full scope of what we're doing, make sure to download the entire program and follow it to its fullest extent, because there we're going to have all the exercises that we've chosen and selected to develop your arms. In this episode, we've given you all the tools necessary to build a great looking set of arms. But if I can get you to take one thing away, it would be this. Building a great set of arms is a lot more than just some isolated exercises that you throw in one workout or at the end of a workout. If you want to build a great looking set of arms, you got to push yourself on the big compound lifts as well. When you're hitting your chest, when you're hitting your back, you're also using your biceps, your triceps, and these upper arm muscles to help give you a strong foundation to build from. So don't forget, your arms are built virtually every day in the gym. When you're doing your chest, when you're doing your back, when you're doing your shoulders, those are going to help give you a strong foundation for your arm development. But all these exercises that we've shown you, while they're a little bit more isolative in nature, are going to help supercharge your arm development. So if you guys go in the gym and you put all these pieces together, I can guarantee you're going to build a great physique and a great looking set of arms. Now before you jump into the program, make sure that you guys watch all these videos because we go into the same amount of detail for all the other body parts as we just did with the arms. I'm Mike Robertson. This is Built by Science.
Learn muscular anatomy, biomechanics, the skeletal system, muscle function, and the best exercises to build lean mass. Knowledge is power. Know yourself to build yourself. Build yourself with the best. Mind, muscle, masterpiece.